Hey folks, welcome to the Retro Rides podcast, volume 2. This time we've got Simon Coulson, who is on the forum known as rmad. He is basically my right-hand man for all things Retro Rides for the longest time, in terms of forum administration and all that stuff. However, this time I'm not going to be talking to him about that. That is the plan for our regular slots when we'll just sort of discuss forum bits and pieces and the goings-on in the world of retro. But this time he's here in his capacity as illustrator in Classic Ford magazine. So we're going to go through a bit of his car history and we'll talk to him about his illustrations and inspirations and all of that kind of good stuff. It's a really nice interview. I hope you enjoy it and get used to the sound of his voice because you'll be hearing it more often. Hello, Simon Coulson. How are you?
Hello. I'm fine. Yes.
Excellent stuff.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you the first question that I'm going to ask pretty much everyone, which is why cars?
Why cars? Do you know, I was thinking about this. I had a feeling you're going to ask, and I don't really know. I just remember from like earliest memories walking down the street, just looking at these things and noticing stuff about them, and just knowing they had names and different styles and stuff like that. I mean, my dad worked at Ford's, but I don't think that was anything to do with it. In fact, I became anti-Ford for a little while as a result of that because he wasn't around for that long. I just love cars, and in some ways I'm disappointed by it because I don't really like football and blokey stuff.
You're not a stereotypical man.
It's a blokey thing, and I'm just into something that's really quite normal, and that disappoints me in a way. But I just like cars. That's it. They're cool.
Okay, so what was your first car?
The first car I owned,
was
I went at a joint buy with a friend of mine, Darren. We bought an old Morris Minor. It was really him. He was a bit older than me, so he was likely to be driving first. I think we were 16, and it was a Morris Minor, and it belonged actually to Merc Dan of the forum.
Oh, good lord!
It was. That's who he bought it off. So officially, it was Darren's. He paid me off pretty quickly, but it still counts as my first car. It was a bright red 2-door with 8-spoke like chrome Wellers on it, jacked up a bit at the back. Not quite the full 70s, but just enough to make it look really cool. And it never got on the road. I think it was bought on the road, but Darren didn't pass his test very soon. And his mum and dad had a Mark II Escort, which he ended up owning by the time he was driving. But we used to sit in it on his driveway and eat Chinese.
Nice. Yeah. Well, that's all you really need to do to own a car. Eat Chinese, isn't it? What year would this have been?
What year was the car, or what year was this?
What year was this?
I don't know. When I was 16, 1971 to then. I don't know. I've no idea.
Mid-80s is correct. Yeah. Well, actually, yeah.
It was an old car.
Yeah,
it was a classic at the time. It wasn't just.
So that was your first shared ownership. What was your first actual belongs to Simon exclusively car?
I then bought off a bloke I worked with. I bought a Triumph Vitesse, 1600 Mark I Triumph Vitesse. Which was a bit of a pile, but I just loved it and I bought it. And again, before I could drive, I ended up on my driveway. And then my mum phoned my dad, who's appeared far too many times already, and said, Simon's bought this rubbish car. And he came round, told me it was rubbish, and we scrapped it. It's about the size of it. My mum tried to save me from the world of classic cars.
That's quite sweet.
I don't think I was brave enough to say, no, this is what I wanted. I did, in fact, buy a Triumph Herald shortly after that, or when I passed my test. I then went out and got a Triumph Herald, which was all right, but probably no better than the Vitesse in the end. Just cost a lot more money, so my mum felt a bit better about it.
No, I have that story. So your first actual car on the road was a Triumph Herald, which would have been probably 88.
Yeah, it was. In fact, I can tell you, because it was 20 years old at the time, it was an 8-tread, so it was a 70, and it was 20.
So 1990.
So I don't know. Yeah, so it must have been 1990.
Yeah, 1990. Your math skills are top notch.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to stick with the cars and ask you what your worst car was, seeing as we've covered a couple that didn't even make it onto the road, so I'm assuming they're probably pretty close.
No, my worst cars are in some ways my best cars. I mean, I'm not very good at buying cars because I've got knowledge but not patience. I think I just need a car when I need a car, and I just like it and buy it, even though I knew it was rubbish at the time. But I owned a Saab 95 Estate, which is super cool. Not a 9.5, but a 95, which I think pictures of it appear somewhere. It's green and white walls and slammed
On the food shallows.
in a street machine style, I suppose, at the time.
Yeah.
But it did have a knack of exploding or heating engines or various. So, I mean, not helped by the fact that I never maintain any car. I just drive it till it dies and then cry.
Have you thought about learning to maintain your cars?
Not really. I mean, it's not completely alien to me. It's just, I think when you haven't got the setup, when you're not that enthusiastic, my love for cars is about really how they look or those weird facts about them or just, something stylish or modifications. And so I'm not really that interested in mechanics. And the thought of going out and working in a garage, it doesn't make you feel happy, and I'm not a confident person with things I don't really understand. So going out in the garage involves finding a set of old clothes, and then you go out to the garage and then I haven't got the right tool I needed, and you have to take if you wear gloves, you have to take the gloves off, and you have to come in and then find something a bit like Swarfiga and then wreck the kitchen in the process of trying to wash your hands and all that sort of stuff. And it's just, if I had a workshop and all the tools and a changing room in the garage, a shower, I don't know, anything like that would be a lot better. But everything involves such a lot of effort when you haven't got the experience. And I don't really have the desire to overcome that. I'd much rather one of those, they say built not bought. I'd go with bought not built. Pay someone else to do it. I'd love to have the money to employ someone, Jay Leno style, I suppose. And just have all these great ideas that someone else helps me put together. I'm not bad at solving problems. When it's like engineering stuff, I've had to, in the times I've attempted mechanics, I've had to try and work things out that other mechanics who are essentially just fitters can't manage. And so I can solve the problems. It's just that basic knowledge, and I get so easily stopped.
I can say I sympathise with that. I sympathise because that's pretty much exactly how I was for years until I got a garage, and now I'm only just really starting to go. I'll give this a go, because the worst that can happen is the car stops working, and I'll need to get someone in to sort it out. Whereas if the starting point is I need to get someone to sort it out, then I haven't even tried. But that's only since I've had space and tools and things, and a car that I don't need to be working all the time. So you have my sympathy on that.
I think that's part of it. I think if I had a big double garage or something like that, I'd probably just fill it with bicycles. But that's one of the main issues is, if I need to do anything, it's usually to repair something, and it probably needs to be working by tomorrow night when I've got to go to work or something.
Yeah.
And I've got to move a load of stuff out of the way first, usually stuff that can't get that dirty, and then I've got to find a spanner which I probably left somewhere else, that sort of stuff. So, a big garage with a lovely toolbox and a clean space, that would help. But I still don't think that would be lovely. I'd still rather have a big garage and a clean space and a mechanic in it.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah. So, given all the garage time and everything, you would be more likely to have a car that you would work on. But you're saying your Saab 95 Estate was as bad as it got because of lack of maintenance.
I think so. Just that it caused me loads of trouble. It was very stylish, and I love the look of it, but I vowed, along with rear-ending Skodas, to generally never own another one, because they don't treat me well, and I don't treat them very well in return. But the Saab eventually caught fire, and then I changed the engine in it, and I think it was just as bad and sounded like a bag of spanners when I drove it down the road. Someone actually did say, I remember that sounded awful. So yeah, they remember just how bad it sounded. But I probably just didn't even think of putting oil in it or something like that.
Eventually just ate itself.
Yeah, I assume that oil lights come on just to remind you to put some oil in, but people tell me that means they're actually about to die.
Oh, I didn't know that either. So
Yeah, that red light, I thought, just get home and maybe put some oil in.
Oh, well. Now we know. That's a lesson, folks. If you're listening to this, you've learned something if you didn't know it already. Us idiots are probably the only people that don't. So, that was your worst car. What was your best car?
Even though I just mentioned rear-engine Skodas in my worst cars, my S110R, or in fact I've had two, but probably my yellow S110R, the first one, which is now no longer with us, according to people down in the South Coast Skoda Club, who told me it got broken up for spares unnecessarily.
Oh no!
Yeah, I don't really know. Some guy bought it and then just broke it up, and I remember a couple of people saying, I don't really know why he did that, but that no longer exists. Parts of it might, but it doesn't. And that was just really classy, especially now as things like this come into their own. But at the time, it was a super unloved car that just looked great, in my opinion. Just, not blinkered by what manufacturer makes a car. I looked at it and thought, yeah, I'll have one of those. And I did. I had two, in fact. 2 of the 7 left at the time, according to the calculations of the DVLA. And the Cressida has to come in there. I've owned like a Pro Street V8 Herald, which I thought would be my ultimate car, but somehow just wasn't. But the Cressida.
But you mainly use the Pro Street. You use the Pro Street V8 Herald for going to the shops and things like that, rather than drag racing.
Yes. Yeah. Well, in fact, we were foster parents at the time, my wife and I, and she did take it to a meeting of other foster parents, and let me tell you, it wasn't quiet, and it wasn't subtle in any way. It had flames on it and more rubber on the back than anything else, because it was so wide. Ridiculous thing to turn up to a meeting with a 5-litre Mustang V8 under the bonnet of a Herald. Well, not quite under the bonnet, mostly under the bonnet of a Herald. But that's not my best car. The Cressida was.
Yeah, that thing was amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess the same story as the Saab to a certain degree. Got beyond you to keep up the repair on it, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Saab was I just didn't look after it, and the Cressida, it didn't let me down. I didn't look after it really, but that wasn't its problem. I really kind of sold it as it started to get little rust spots that I was never going to deal with. I ran it on such a tiny budget of literally, £100 a year or something. So I barely spent anything on it. It's always just looking forward to the next thing. A lot like, if we're allowed to mention other people, I think the way Mark Bogner runs his Micra, which is one of the things I love about it, that it cost him almost nothing to run. And it's all about just a little detail every now and then. So I used to think with the Cressida, right, I'm gonna do this for next year. So it might have been the exhaust for one season and the wheels for another. But the money was always just money that was sort of found at a birthday or something like that. And it deserved more. It deserved someone who could spend money on it because they loved it and had a bit of spare money. And I wasn't that person. I just loved it and didn't have any money.
Yeah, no, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
Well, that was probably what you're most well known for on Retro Ride car-wise, other than being.
I think so. Yeah, because I had it. I'd only had it a little while when I say when you first started Retro Rides, and in some ways I had it before I even knew what it was. I'd known about Cressidas for years. I remember, as I said earlier, being a little lad and just looking at all the cars, and somehow in my brain, instead of remembering important things, I remembered all cars. And so when it came to modifying cars, my brain just automatically remembered a car that I'd seen when I was 6 or something, and just thought, oh, I like that. And then when I really got into cars and realised that these limitations that people place on what cars we should do up and shouldn't are just fictional, and that I didn't have to do a Ford something and I didn't have to do a Volkswagen something. I could look at those things and think, yeah, I like that. I could do something completely different. So I like an Escort, I buy a Viva, or in the case of the Skoda, I liked Volkswagens. My friends had Volkswagens, and I bought an old Skoda and did the same thing, and just stood out without spending a load of money. And
I guess is that partly a financially driven thing, that you went for a Skoda rather than a VW because it was cheaper and things like that, or I mean, I suppose at the time that wasn't really necessarily the case. I mean, they were cult, but they weren't always that expensive.
They were still more expensive than Skodas.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah, I mean, I blend it all together. In terms of like the finances, I can look at a car at a show and see it's been built on a budget and like it more for that. If I won the lottery, which I'd have to play to win, but if I did win the lottery, if I suddenly had a load of money, then I probably would go out and buy a split window van or something. But I get an enormous amount of pleasure out of deciding I like that, and so I'll do something completely different, but in a similar style. And when I first bought the Cressida, I had a lowrider feel for it. That's what I was thinking. It's sort of American looks would really suit that sort of lowrider thing. And initially, when I bought it, I was probably looking at ways of finding a set of wire wheels for it or something, and keeping all the chrome. And it never lost that. It was never the full Japanese thing. It was a little while later when we started looking at the Japanese scene that I realised I had exactly the right car for a certain look.
Yeah.
But it never stopped for me being a classic car and a lowrider and a Shakatan car. It was always all of those things to me.
Well, that's where it all gets interesting, is where you mash up all the things you kind of like and end up with this weird beast in between. I always quite like that. That's what I quite liked about the car in general anyway. But I'm a big fan of taking your various influences and throwing them together in a way that, if you can make it work, works really well.
Absolutely. I mean, it would be lovely, as again with that unlimited funding, it would be lovely to build exactly the right car. It would, I'd love to build a Robux. How do you say Robuxidos?
Robuxidos
style Passat, Mark 1 Passat on those wheels, the names of which I've forgotten.
The Apollo 17-inch ones,
but are awesome.
Yeah.
But then if you were to build an exact replica, you've built an exact replica, and where's the fun in that? So you want to build a UK version.
That's an interesting thing to me. I don't understand. This is one of the things that kind of knocks me a little bit about the modern car scene, is that you see a thing that you like in Japan, the States, your local show, and then people go out and build the exact car pretty much, and I don't get it. Like, it already exists. Like it would be like if I decided to record an album and I did note for note version of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club. It's like, what's the point in that? That's that. But then I suppose effectively you're doing cover versions, but all of the best cover versions have their own spin on it, and they make it theirs. And that's what I would quite like. I like to see someone goes, I quite like the USDM stuff in Japan, where it's gone from Japan to the States and then back to Japan, and now they're putting their own spin on it again. And it's going back again. And I quite like that. It's sort of it's a cover version, but it's been made their own, and I'm a big fan of that sort of stuff. But yeah, I don't get necessarily looking at a car and going, I'm going to build exactly that. That having been said, I would quite like to import a full house Bozuzuku car to the UK, because there isn't one. There's like a few that have done their own thing on it, which is actually almost better. Like the cars that float around our scene with the exhausts and the shark mouth and all that kind of stuff. I like that almost more for their inventiveness, because we don't have Toyota Mark IIs to just chop up and do things with.
Yeah.
But it would be quite nice to have a full house, like Garushan Bozuzuku car in the UK. So I kind of betray myself a little bit. I would quite like to have one of those in the UK, but I don't understand the scene where just everyone has the same car. Talking of which, classic Ford.
You're going to get in trouble.
I'm only joking, people. You have a sense of humour and mini lights. So you are probably most well known outside of Retro Rides as the man what does the artwork at the back of Classic Ford magazine and throughout Classic Ford magazine occasionally. How did that come about?
Well, do you know, you're partly to blame for this,
Yes.
not wholly to blame for it. In that we were collaboratively, or I was helping you out with some articles, and you did the first one on using different wheels on Fords.
Oh, I did, didn't I? Yes,
something other than Revolutions, I believe, was the title of the piece, working title. And I supplied photographs for it from my vast stock of photographs of wheels. And then you came on to do the Don't Just Do Escorts, to follow up Don't Just Do Revolutions piece. And we didn't have the photographs because people weren't doing the other cars. And I think we came up with a Mark II Fiesta, which was actually quite unusual at the time, to suggest to the Classic Ford boys that we should do such a thing. And a Coulson, which most people didn't even know existed. Because we didn't have the photographs, I drew them, which was a bit of a weird thing to do, wasn't it?
That was a bit odd.
Not very well, but I did. Yeah, we had a phone call. I said, I haven't got the photographs. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll draw them, digging out some long lost skill or talent. I use the term loosely. And as a result, Simon, the editor, said, "Can you do more of those?" Initially, because I'm such a confident person, he says sarcastically, I said, no. But then I thought, if you're asking, then I suppose they're good enough. And if you're happy with what I provided, then I can continue to provide those. And I get to feel a bit more like one of my idols, Steve Kirk, who used to do the street machine drawings. So I do remember looking back and saying, when I was younger, I would have either wanted to be Bob Harrow or Steve Kirk. And I haven't become Bob Harrow yet, but I have become Steve Kirk.
There's still time. I met Bob Harrow. He's a very nice guy.
Yeah, I haven't met him. I think I'd probably just fall over.
No.
Be embarrassing. I don't think there's any man in the world more adored by 45-year-old men. It's a strange thing.
Now I'm going to counter that with Rodney Mullen, but that would spiral off into a whole different conversation.
Oh yes, yeah.
So I'm going to keep it on Classic Ford and your artwork. In a vague effort to steer this in an expert manner.
Yeah.
So right now you own effectively the back 2 pages of the magazine. Is that fair to say? It's not quite the actual back 2. That's right. It's near the back.
A double page spread, not quite on the back because a rally company has that. Well done them. And I'm just inside the back pages with a double page spread, which is we pick 2 cars from various classifieds, be it retro rides or maybe old school Ford, spelled with a K, and then we just decide what we might do with them. Usually influenced by things outside of the Ford scene, things I've seen over the course of time, or things from my rather large collection of old magazines.
So that's what I was going to ask, where the ideas come from. So it's just generally you come up with it. Simon doesn't steer you on anything. You just look through the ads and go, I want to build one of them and one of them. And
he usually picks the cars.
Right.
Although the ones I've just sent over to him, he picked the cars and then I unpicked the cars and chose completely different things. But mostly he picks the cars and I see it as a challenge, and then I apply something that's either current or old, or just for any reason, just think of stuff. In reality, as I say to him, I'd just lower everything on the nice shiny wheels and leave it all standard. I'd do everything resto cal. But we do need to come up with silly paint schemes and different ideas. So that's what happens.
How hard does it get to come up with ideas after the amount of time you've been doing it?
I don't find that the ideas difficult at all, if I'm honest. Finding an idea I can then draw sometimes is a bit of a problem. I'm untrained, apart from experience, and I have to say, I feel personally that the work I'm doing at Classic Ford has improved over time. Practice makes better, as they say. But there's times I can think, oh yeah, that would look awesome with metal flake paint, but I can't do metal flake paint. So either I try and learn the skill, which I have done in the past, or I think of a different idea. So it's one of those things. Like if you're gonna sell yourself as a professional at something, you really should be able to do anything.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that's true, but I think I see your point. But I think that everybody gets better as they're doing a thing. So your pictures when you first started were versus your pictures now, and your range of and ability to implement what you might think of has definitely changed and improved. So don't be hard on yourself. You're always so hard on yourself.
Yeah, well, lack of confidence. There you go. But I did. I don't know. Maybe we should do a thread that goes with this where we put the pictures up, because I don't display them, even though I now have an Instagram page.
I should definitely do that.
Really, if you want to see the pictures, Classic Ford is the place to go. Buy a Classic Ford magazine, everyone.
Buy paper magazines. They're awesome. And Simon Woolley's a lovely man.
Right now. But otherwise, I do have an Instagram page, and we'll put a thread up, and I can talk about like particular pictures. I did a lowrider Mark III Cortina. You've probably seen it. It's an orange one.
Yes.
And I really, exactly as I just said, I thought of ideas, and I thought, I can't really do that. I'm not sure my skills are up to it. And then I said, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do everything I can't do, or everything that takes me a long time or something. So it's got wire wheels and more chrome than some American cars. And it's got metal flake paint and just craziness, just everything that scares me off. I just thought, I'm going to do it. If I'm going to do a lowrider, I'm going to do a proper lowrider. So, I'll try and put that picture somewhere so we can see it, because it's one of the few pictures I'm proud of.
We'll stick up a thread on Retro Rides, and we can ridicule your awful pictures.
Yeah.
That'd be perfect.
That's it.
How long do your pictures take?
It depends. I do them through the course of a day, because I have a weird job. My other job means that I'm not at work in the daytime when most other people are. I have days, but those days also include, driving people about and being a parent and being a housewife. Well, just doing washing up and stuff like that. So in the course of the day, I'll turn the computer on. I'll sit there and I'll work on it, and I'll look at many web pages for inspiration, which is a bit like just looking at lots of web pages. Come up with ideas and try stuff out, but in reality, I tend to leave it very close to the deadline.
Like all true artists, the day before the deadline.
Yeah, but I always get it there on deadline. I've never missed a deadline, but it's literally I probably do it in the week before. I start thinking I should really get on with these now. And then I do them, but I never really sit down and do them start to finish. I start, and then, in fact, I reluctantly start is generally the idea. I think, I'm not sure about this, and then off I go, and then I get into it, and it starts to become something I like. I start wanting to see the finished product. So I'll get a little way, and if it's working, and usually they do work better than I expect. I start on them going, and then something happens, and I just think, oh yeah, that's cool. And then you can't tear me away from it for a little while. I'll just be working away, doing wheels or something. I don't know. I haven't answered your question at all, have I?
No, you certainly have. You said a day plus some time, which is about as vague as you'll get from any artist. So that's fine. Which of the ones you've done so far is your favourite?
Well, I like the Mark III Cortina lowrider because I put some effort into it. I usually like the last one I did is the size of it. I did a Thames van influenced by what some people in the States are doing to like Ford Econolines and stuff at the moment. Is just having something really quite standard looking and just slamming it to the floor on like black steels and white walls, like vintage van company stuff, if that name rings a bell. And I did a Thames like that, which is completely buildable. In fact, I know Raven is putting together a body dropped channeled Thames, which is essentially the same thing I've done, but just with it from a different angle. That's a really good looking car. And way back when I first did it, I did a Granada Chasseur Estate. I may not even be pronouncing that correctly.
Chasseur.
But essentially Chasseur. It's a like two-tone brown thing that actually came with its own luggage.
Wow. That's like
Special
Rolls
edition,
Royce
very
spec
few of them
Ford.
exist. Oh, but amazing cars, and they came with the old TRX alloys. The metric ones that you used to get on Cortinas and Granadas and stuff, and even Fiesta had a little 12-inch version of it. But TRX alloys, but on the Chasseur, it had completely blacked out trim for strange reasons, but complete what they call black line, I think, in German cars.
Yeah.
Completely blacked trim, and the wheels were like a pearl sort of quartzy, bronzy colour, just for no reason at all, other than awesome styling or someone going a bit crazy in the Ford styling department. But when I did it, I just lowered it a bit and left the two-tone paintwork as it was, but put TSW Holstons on, because it's all about, you look at what you've got and you try and make a different version of it, so you haven't ruined it. It's not sacrilege, it's homage. Yeah, that's right, homage. So that's one I would have liked to have built, and probably also the Transit flare side.
Oh yes, I've seen that a few times. You loved that, didn't you?
It was Transit flare side on the Fouche or whatever you call them, Fouche wheels, which was just complete nonsense. But at the time, I did look at flare sides on eBay and stuff. There's probably less around now, but like £1,500 would have bought you a reasonable one, and a set of 17-inch Fouche replicas. And a hefty drop. That's one hell of a car for a lot less than a split screen van.
I have to say that occasionally I look at your things in Classic Ford, and it does send me scurrying off to eBay. Particularly ages ago when you did the Granada with the Audi 5-spokes on it. The big flat face 5-spokes that theoretically would fit if you could ever find a pair in the right PCD, because they do exist, but the ones you can usually find are not the right PCD.
I think
somebody did find out, didn't they?
Someone did go out and build it. The funny thing is, I think the drawing you're talking about, I also put suicide doors on it.
Yes.
On the back.
Well, obviously.
Sort of Lincoln Continental look.
Yeah, sensible.
But it's so easy to just draw the door handle on the other end. And I dared think the amount of work that someone else would have put this. It's when you were going to lower this and then draw it literally on the floor, knowing full well that the stock McPherson strut will never get anywhere near.
That's the thing with the Steve Kirk pictures are exactly the same. You look at them and you think, that'd be amazing to build, and then you kind of look at the actual mechanics of it, and it's like, that's never going to happen. I kind of need to body drop that over a different chassis.
Yeah,
and it just looks like it's lowered on some nice wheels.
It's that last 2 inches of any lowering job, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's, you can get quite low, but to get picture low, you just got to go too far. But everything goes really low. I think that's artistic license. If I was to draw it at the height most people would build it at, it just wouldn't look very good. And
but if you look at concept cars are exactly the same. They engineer them that low, and they draw them that low, and then they put them into production much, much higher. And if you try to get them that low again, you end up kind of on airbags and all sorts, because they were never actually designed really to go into production that lowerable. But everything can be made to sit on the floor. It's fine. Yeah. Just need to really, really want to do it sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a shame that Triumphs and things aren't quite so easy to get as low as one might like from looking at drawings of them, because I think they'd be amazing. But apparently you have all kinds of weird sump problems.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think one of the hardest vehicles to lower in the whole car scene and everything is Volkswagens. But because everyone does it, and there's a whole industry built around it, then you forget. But to be honest, that front beam and putting adjusters in it and rear twisty torsion bar arms and stuff like that, that's nonsense lowering. I think the most difficult cars to lower are the ones that people sell thousands of pounds of parts to do just that.
That is a very good point.
I remember when I got my first 2CV and I wanted to lower that, and everyone was like, "Oh, you can't lower 2CVs." Oh, no, that can't happen.
Do it with a screwdriver.
And you just do it with a pair of mole grips. Yeah. And you just, admittedly, if you want to go really low, you need to lengthen the rods. And I didn't. I had about like one turn of thread on it, stopping it just falling to the floor. But it's it's interesting that a lot of Volkswagen boys are saying to me, "You can't lower two CVs," when they're lowering a car that should be unlowerable. It's just that people persevered.
Yeah.
Versus a car that people haven't bothered to lower. So yeah, most difficult car to lower, Volkswagens.
There we go.
They're called Volkswagens.
Have any of the cars, talking of things that are impossible to build, have any of the cars that you've drawn been built by anyone? I always hear rumours. I occasionally hear rumours. But
someone built one this season, this year.
Really?
Oh man, yeah, and they did an amazing job of it.
Which one? We need to see. Well, we'll put a thread up, and
yeah.
whenever this goes out, I'll try and get the URL.
You might not. You might know the car, but not have seen the original drawing. It's Mark II Cortina Estate, which I did as a 2-door, or officially I suppose a 3-door. But I just put a long door on it.
Yeah.
And the guy just went out and built it. And built it amazingly well. And it's sort of a beigey grey colour. The one I did it in a blue, and he did it in a beigey grey. But he actually went and approached quite a well-known classic Ford business, the name of which I can't remember. Sorry, to build it for him, and they did, and it's awesome.
Oh my god, that's incredible!
Yeah. Really good.
That kind of also super inspirational, because the whole point of that thing with you drawing is to have people inspired enough to try something a little bit different. Whilst I may joke about the 14 being all mini lights and or Revolution 4 spokes and stuff, and having written articles about it being like that, I think that it seems definitely more open to interesting ideas now than it once did, and maybe you're responsible for that partly. And Simon, obviously.
I'd love to feel responsible for it. I'm not sure I am. I think the whole of the car scene is just all moving together. When we used to look down at what was in Max Power, and now actually the stuff in Max Power is kind of the stuff that we'd be doing. In fact, I think the retro scene has got more Max Power cars than Max Power has now.
Possibly.
I think, that's
almost a bit of a worry.
Yeah, the Cillian mods are here, whereas they're building just nicely lowered Golfs or whatever. But I think I'd love to think that the pictures at the back of the magazine have made a difference. I go to the Classic Ford show every year now. I don't go to many one mark shows, but I go to the Classic Ford show at Santa Paul every year. And you take a walk around, and there's some really cool stuff around. There's people doing estates that they never used to touch estate cars, and there's a lot of wide steels around. But I doubt that's got anything to do with me at all. But there's just really good stuff around. There's Mark I Cortinas where guys ordered. You've probably seen it, Mark I Cortina Estate, that I don't think I'll take any responsibility for, but he's ordered a set of custom made high ashes for it. High ashes street fins.
That's amazing. Straight
from Japan. He just contacted them. None of this rotor replica stuff. Just contacted them and got them built to order. For a Mark I Cortina Estate. Now, how cool is that?
That's the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah.
I think
we're gonna have to make a thread, aren't we?
Yeah, you got it now. The thing with the worldwide car scene is that people look at they finally come around almost to that way of thinking that we had, and I'm going to sound so hipster, but that way of thinking we had, I think it was probably 11 years ago, if not more at this point, where...
You are so hipster.
We are so hipster. You're involved in this. Is that we would look at a 3-box car and go, right, that Datsun 510 could be a Mark II Cortina, or it could be a VW Jetta, or whatever other cheap, unloved, or available car we had. What's interesting with the Ford scene, I think, is perhaps that once upon a time it used to be easy to just go out and find an Escort to modify, and now you're laying down enough cash that actually you stop and you think, what are you going to do with it? Am I going to do with it? Or can I even afford it to begin with? And what else can I have? And there are still Fords out there that are affordable pricing. And if you've got inspirational pictures to go, hey, you can do this with it, even if there isn't already a scene about that car, at least they might be able to flick through some back issues of Classic Ford and go, oh, I've got a Corvair, and look, he's built a lowrider Corvair or whatever it is you've done previously. I think that's quite a useful thing to have, particularly for sort of maybe even like a younger generation coming into cars and stuff that want to get something older, that they're put off by the fact that an Escort is 8, 9, 16, 24, £124,000 now.
Yeah.
So I think that it's useful from that point of view to expand the scene as well, without people actually necessarily having had to have already built the cars.
I mean, someone somewhere has usually done it. So even if you're talking about newish Daihatsus or Hyundais or something, there's a massive scene in the Philippines. And I remember when I first got on the internet, and you made your own websites to be part of it all. One of the first things I discovered outside of my own car world, which included the UK car scene and probably the US custom scene, hot rod scene, all that sort of stuff, reading Street Machine and Custom Car and everything, is that the Japanese and the Australians and and even the Americans doing Datsun 510s. Now, no one in this country was doing 510s. Sure, we had the occasional race car, and Datsun put their own cars into a few races, but just to see a scene just like our Mark II, Mark 1 Escort scene, going crazy about a car that most people just overlooked here. And I loved to find other scenes. And when we discovered, I can't say that we discovered it completely on our own, but the Japanese scene, to find that just there on the internet for the taking and for the looking at, it felt great. It's what the internet was about, and it's the world's just a big car show.
Yeah, it's like that. It's the VW Vortex thread that kind of kicked that off. But then we had to, I remember spending hours and hours trawling around Japanese language websites. There was no Google Translates or anything. You just click on everything that's a link on the page to see if something took you to some photos. And then you'd be blown away. You'd go, oh my God, look at this thing. It's amazing. Because you've never seen anything like it. And it's kind of hard to describe that to some people now, perhaps. But the trick with that was to not just go, oh, look at this. It's amazing. I'm going to build exactly that. It actually circles back around. It's to pull that inspiration in and go, I can apply that to a Corvair. That's
the only choice you had. You couldn't, short of spending a load of money, and even that before the internet wasn't an easy thing
that's
to
hard,
do.
man.
If you wanted to buy a Cressida Coupe, a Mark II Chaser Grande or something, you just couldn't. There was no way you could do it. So you had to look for something else. You had to say, well, that looks a bit like the Nissans that we had. We had a few of those Skyline coupes. That would do it. You're looking for the UK version or something that someone else has imported for some other reason. It used to be that thinking outside the box thing. The reason the Cressida, first of all, had the Lotus wheels. I found the stud pattern was what we now know is 4 by 114.3, but it seemed kind of unusual. You're looking at other things that fit it, and I found out that the Toyota Supra and the equivalent Lotus, the Lotus
XL.
Elite, Eclat.
That's it.
Eclat had Eclat. I don't know. Eclat had that same stud pattern because they shared development costs at the time or something, and it took a picture of the Celica Supra wheels, the old 4 8-spoke ones, on a Lotus to put 2 and 2 together. And so then it was, well, these wheels came on a Lotus, so they're not particularly sought after in Lotus circles because they're the wheels that all the cars came with. And then when we put aftermarket ones, we'll have a pile of those in the garage. So my first set of Lotus wheels were like a tenner.
Yeah, I got mine not long after I bought my Datsun, which was probably about 6 to 8 months after you got your Cressida. Well, you got those wheels on the Cressida, and mine were £20. I still have those wheels in the garage somewhere.
Yeah, I bought quite a few in the end. I ended up with a pile of about 16 of them, I think, which I sort of sold off as people showed interest in mine. I sold them off for pretty much what I pay for them. But it's interesting that they've become almost one of the sought after items. They're still, cheaper than a brand new set of wheels. But it's really interesting that that's people do buy a Japanese car, 4-star Japanese car or older one, and go, put Lotus wheels on that, and actually actively go out and find a set rather than thinking, that might do the job. and I can find some of those, and they're not going to have a great deal of value. The funny thing is with all of the car modifying hobby, is there is still Lotus wheels out there, but they're not Lotus wheels. There's something else now. There is still
there's another thing.
A set of wheels for £20. It's when people say to me, "Oh, classic cars have been priced out completely. They're you can't afford a Mark II Escort." And it's well, of course you can't. A Mark II Escort is 40 years old now. A 20-year-old Mark II Escort was £500. So you're looking for a 20-year-old car that's £500, of which there's plenty.
Yeah.
That's what people sort of don't get. You can't buy Lotus wheels anymore for a tenner, but you can buy, I don't know, Isuzu Trooper wheels or something. You know, it's just a case of thinking outside the box and taking the blinkers off, and having ideas and doing a bit of research. I suppose it still amazes me. People come and say, people do turn up on the forum and say, "I've got one of these." And no one's done one. I don't know what to do with it. And then say it's got this really unusual stud pattern of 4x114.3. And you go,
where can I find wheels?
Oh, for heaven's sake!
Yeah.
This is all the wheels. This is everything from a Triumph Stag to any number of imported Toyota Master Races that have now gone to the great head gasket graveyard into the sky. And suddenly there's a load of Japanese aftermarket wheels that came over in boatloads, and are just sitting there. I remember locally there was a Micra, K11 Micra, on SSR Mark 1s.
No.
I guarantee the owner had no idea. Just a little set of 13-inch wheels without holes in. Someone's probably found them now, but there was plenty of Japanese imports that were coming over, not because they were cool, just because they were a bit cheaper. All those Town Aces and Lucidas and that sort of stuff. And most of them had wheels on, because as we know from when we were over in Japan, they like modifying their cars.
Everybody modifies their cars, or at least at the time, everybody modified their cars.
Yeah,
madness, absolute madness. Well, I'm gonna start to cut this short because I think we're about time. The idea was about 45 minutes. I think we're about 45 minutes. Handily, for everybody that enjoyed that, Simon will be back on the regular, so you get to hear us talking about other stuff. I may even have more questions for him in an interview type manner if we run out of stuff to talk about. I don't think
we did that many questions, did
we? We didn't really. You just talk and talk and talk.
I just
talk and talk. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
But that's good. Would you wish to say anything?
Not really. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been fun. I look forward to the next one.
Well, we'll do it again.
I hope other people liked it.
Well, I do too. And the other thing that's probably worth noting is I still don't know how to end a podcast.